Let's go to Jane in Lewisham first. Hello, Jane.
Hello, Clive.
Hello, Jane. What would you like to say?
Well, all this talk about, a deal or no deal, it's just a load of absolute waffle. And the traders themselves, when it sort of comes to it, they'll just say, just to the European Parliament and the governments, just get out of it. We are trading. They'll just carry on as normal. And if anything, these trade blocs block trade.
Why do you think that?
Well, they have to go through these certain channels, don't they, before they can trade. Whereas, now we've got the global internet. If somebody designs a product, they should just be able to sell it, and, the car dealers shouldn't have to have rules.
So there's a bit of a problem with this, Jane, because I can kind of see it feels like it should be okay. But I was talking to people who work in car manufacturing, and this is like some of the best jobs in Britain. Really good, skilled manufacturing. It's high-tech, well-paid work, exactly what we want to be doing. But these companies are international now, and so one of the best car engine companies, based just outside of Birmingham, their parts, by the time they built their kind of engine components that they build, they've crossed the channel 5 times to get that done. And even slight delays would absolutely cripple their system. So at the minute, they can get through Dover and Calais really quickly. Now, for a whole bunch of legal reasons, because of all the rules that are there, and you can say the EU shouldn't have those rules, and maybe even agree with you on some of that, but they do have those rules, and they're going to enforce them. So if we just left without agreeing something with them...
But maybe they won't enforce them, because they will
enforce them. You can talk to Angela Merkel, you can talk to the EU Commission, you can talk to any leader in any country. They are going to enforce the rules.
Could they be bluffing?
Well,
I wish.
It's the traders just say, look, which is going to happen. The traders are going to say, look, we're not listening to you, European Parliament, we're not listening to Angela Merkel, and the Germans should find a decent leader.
But if you've got a customs guard saying you can't come in without an inspection, and you've got a queue of 800 lorries in front of you, you can say, yes, I'm coming through as much as you want. You're not going to get through. And that's the problem. It's not that we think these rules are brilliant or we want this to happen. It's just that that's what will happen if we do this without a deal, and then we will lose these brilliant manufacturing jobs.
There's another point here, Jane, which is that trade, first of all, requires 2 people to agree to a common set of rules, and that's what keeps us safe. So when you talk about why do we need to have rules for cars, well, there are really good reasons for that, because there are rules that ensure that the cars are safe, that the mechanics are safe, that the fuels that don't kill us with poisonous gases and so on, and that has to be agreed with different countries that we're trading with. So we can build a car, we can send it to another place, and that place will accept that car as being safe for selling in that country. So there are really good ways in which trade blocs actually facilitate trade, and also they break down barriers, they break down tariffs, so we don't pay anything when we sell cars over there, and they don't have to pay when they bring things here.
Well, I've got a feeling Jane doesn't agree with you, but thank you very much, Jane, for that. I want to bring in Thomas in Worthing. Hello, Thomas.
Good evening.
Evening. What would you like to say?
I think this whole scenario, the way I'm listening to it from your guests, is kind of like the Twilight Zone, to be honest. If the path was set forth as they've described it, it would be a public relations disaster for the EU. I mean, if you read the newspapers today, you'd think that people would be dropping like flies on street corners because of pandemics. We've had the whole kind of preventing cancer medication coming to the UK. Debate and scaremongering as well. If this was to happen and people were dying as a result of not being able to negotiate any kind of an agreement, how is this going to reflect on an EU that's supposedly built on the premise of keeping peace and prosperity in Europe?
Well, it will reflect really badly on it, and that's why the EU doesn't want to have a no-deal scenario. But the point is that the EU will always have a deal on the table. If we have a no-deal situation, it'll be because the UK has rejected the deal that the EU has put on the table. So I always say the EU will not let us jump over the cliff unless we really insist on it. They will always want to stop us from doing that.
I actually don't agree with with Jonathan here, because the tricky thing is, you are absolutely right. Over here in the UK press would absolutely savage the EU, and it would probably actually be seen as a justification for why we had to get out of it.
Wouldn't care.
If they were so mean-spirited, if they were so...
They wouldn't
That's
care.
the problem. They don't care what we think because we are leaving. If you look at how the press in Germany, in France, in you name the country, they think Brexit is something we're doing to ourselves because it was our choice. We were the ones who said we're getting out, and the onus on us legally and the onus is on us in PR terms for them. So what they would see it as is, look what these stupid Brits have done to themselves, look what a disaster it is to leave the EU, look how great it is to stay in the EU. That's how it would be painted there, and that's what public sort of opinion within the EU would say.
But they would also stop it from happening because it will be a disaster for them too. It'll be more of a disaster for us, but it will still be a disaster for them. They will do everything in their power to stop a no-deal scenario. But if we insist on driving off the cliff, then they can't stop us.
Thomas?
I think it's utterly bizarre. I mean, you're listening to these two guests again, and we're still talking about this kind of nightmare scenario where the EU are going to be justified in the decision. Your more anti-Brexit guest just said that we've rejected their terms. Now, actually, we were the country that offered them terms. They're the ones that are rejecting even Theresa May's crossing her red lines. This is, it's like a two-way street, and at the moment, I can't stand Theresa May. I think she's doing an absolute awful job of negotiations, but the reality of the matter is, at the moment, it's the EU that are giving the pushback at the moment because they.
But Thomas, I mean, if I offered you a deal saying, whenever I like, I can come in your house, you'll give me a key, and I can raid your fridge. I won't steal anything else, but I can raid your fridge anytime I like. That's a decent deal. That's on the table. We could do a deal there, can't we? Right.
Effectively, what we're doing in the EU, we're saying we're leaving our door open. Come on in.
That's what we're asking them. They see the EU as a club. You've got to pay to be a member. You've got to sort of do that.
You accept all the rules or none of them.
I have offered you a deal. Like, you clearly don't want to let me do that. That's how the EU see our offers.
So what you're effectively saying is the EU, as it currently stands, is a more protectionist construct than what existed before the EU.
Yeah. It absolutely is a protectionist construct.
And again, I will ask you, how is that better than what existed before the EU?
If you're going to live right next to a protectionist construct, you want to be in it.
I don't think it's protectionist in particular. I think it protects its own members. If you want to call
that's
that
the definition of protectionist.
Well, it's not economically protectionist, but it does protect its own members in terms for politically, socially, culturally.
All right, Thomas, thank you very much.